Hi, this is Ina Calder from the InDe'B Quilt Shop, and I have a really fun project for you today. We're using the Vintage Kite foundation paper pieces, and I use them to make this table runner. And here's another one that I'm like in the process of making something a little bit different, similar but different. So this is really fun. You get these foundation paper pieces, and you can see that, and you have a line that goes diagonal across here and diagonal across there. So before you start doing any foundation piecing, you need to cut them all apart. You see they start with one as the gray part, and then you have a 2 and a 3 for each of those. So I recommend using a rotary color that's for paper, one that you no longer use for fabric. And I just put a big ruler on, and I just use that to cut up several pages at once, because when you rip them off, they all stay together. So then you end up with, for each block, you're going to end up with 4 of these, okay, that are like this. And we're just going to use one of these today. So I'm going to put those away to show you how to make the block, okay, really simple and easy. It does give you instructions on the inside of on the back side of this. There's all your instructions. Tells you what to do. It doesn't give you any more instruction than for how to make this block. That's it. That one piece. And then putting 4 of them together. But it doesn't really give you a lot of tips or anything like that. And it does, it shows you, like over here, it shows you examples and shows you the steps one by one, how to do that. This is the next page, and it shows you all the different sizes from a crib size, lap size, twin, a queen, a king, even how many to do in a table runner. And I did a little bit shorter than their table runner because of the size of my table and what I really actually use. Okay, so those are some helpful guides as you decide what to do with your vintage kite quilt. Okay, let me put those out of the way. After you've got these cut, you're going to need 3 separate pieces of fabric. You need 2 background pieces and a center piece if you're making this style, okay? And because I'll show you something else that you can do too that's pretty fun. So you just need 2 pieces cut according to the directions for your paper, okay? So I'm going to put this down so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, so here is my paper. Here is number 1. And I'm going to flip it over so it's facing down on my cutting board. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to put 1 stick of glue. Excuse me. I'm going to do 1 little dot. That's it. Don't use more. You do more than that, it makes it really challenging to pull the paper off at the end because you don't keep it in. And then I'm going to look at, sometimes it's what direction I have put them in, even like this. I've gone straight on like this. And I think I might just do that, but I think I'm going to do this direction. So it's just kind of fun to do that with. And then I just kind of press it down so that I know that it's attached to the paper. Okay. Now I'm going to then fold the paper back. Now there's 2 lines of thought. Some people like to take their paper and they like to fold everything to begin with. Because for them, they think that they feel like that's easier for them and it works better for them. I think this works better. I use a template plastic, if you have that one, and I just line it up on this little line that's right there, and I'm going to flip this over, and then I'm going to use my out of quarter ruler. We have the out of quarter rulers in our shop, and then I'm just going to cut off that. Okay, and then I'm going to add this to it. Now this is a white on white, sometimes hard to see, so here's my tip. Can you see that? Blue jeans, really great. You can look and see which direction. This is the back side, this is the right side, and I want to put right sides together. So I'm going to put right sides together right here. And then I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I flip it back over and I stitch on the line. Okay. When you're stitching on this line, you want to do it like this. You want to do it, I'm going to tip this like this, so that you're starting past this little first trim line there, here, and you'll only go 2 stitches past there. It's really important to only go 2 stitches. Do not stitch all the way. It makes it more challenging. It's not it's not a mistake you have to unpick if you did it that way. Just that. And I did it in a dark thread so that you can see where I'm stitching, okay? So there is where it's at, and that's where I stitched, okay? When I get done with that, I'm going to turn this over, and you can use your nail, you can press with an iron, you can use one of those roller things, you can use one of the wooden things, whatever you want to do to press it, just to make sure you get a good press. So that's my first good press, and now I'm ready to go on to step number 3, okay, and add the third piece. So again, I'm going to put this on. This is why you only want to do 2 stitches, because when I go to lift this up and tear it over, you want it to be able to come very easily and not holding the fabric, and so that the stitches will release. So only 2 stitches. And then I'm going to put on my add a quarter, and I'm going to make sure that this stays in place, because my add a quarter is going to come up next to it. I'm going to hold that into place, and then I cut them all. Okay, now I'm ready to add the next piece, and we're going to check that again. Okay, this is the correct side. I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine, and again I'm going to stitch, but this time I'm going to stitch all the way through. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like. So when you're all done, you have it, the first line only stitched to the first 2 stitches there, and then the second one is stitched all the way through here. Okay, now it's time to trim. And if you see on here, it tells you first trim line. And this one down here says final trim line. Okay, now you could put a piece of glue, you know, another dot and another dot to hold things down, to hold in place. If you feel that that's necessary, go ahead and do that. There's not any reason not to. But I'm going to do the first trim line means I'm going to trim on the actual line. So this little line, I'm going to cut out this little teeny tiny strip of paper and all the fabric on the other side of it. And I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Okay. This is going to make it easier to attach when you're sewing all the pieces together. Okay. If you have a rotary cutter, a rotating mat, that works really well. It's very helpful in doing this. Okay. And so there's your line. We don't want to trim this one until we have them all sewed together. Okay, so let me show you in this one. So when they're all sewed together, that's when you want to go and do the final trim and trim all the way down. You can just line up a ruler like this, and you can trim the whole thing, or you can even do a 6-inch, because these are 6.5 inches. You can do a 6.5 inch square and use that to cut all the way around. Okay, I have found the best thing to do is to press all your seams open. If you don't, you end up with a lot of bulk right here in the center. And your stitch length, you want to do a 1.5, 1.6, 1.4, something in that category stitch. That will help it to not come apart when you pull the paper off. Makes it easier to pull the paper off too with a small stitch like that. But it also will help it that when you go in, if you have somebody that goes in and quilts this, that they won't worry about going and stitching right in the middle, because that's probably a concern of sewn quilters, is when you press them open. That's why they don't like that. But mine is, if you're in the habit of pressing your seams open, you use a much smaller seam stitch length. Okay, now taking the paper off. At this point, when you get to the block like this, you can choose to take the paper off. You could choose to leave it on and to sew it together. So like sew them in, when you're sewing the blocks together like this. Pull this one off. Okay. So when you're sewing the blocks like this together, you can leave the paper on and then pull it off. I found that to not be, to be a little more challenging for me, so I decided to pull the paper off. So let me show you how to do that. This is your last stitch line right here. So you want to put your fingernail, or even a ruler, you could put a ruler up against that like that to help tear it. Okay, pull it up. That's another reason why if you don't have glue, then that does not stick. Okay, this one you should be able to just go in and release it from the seam line, and then do the same thing. So you can put, it's better if I have it on the back side. Okay. And then to get this one out, you could use a stylus if you want to get underneath. But you could also use like a fingernail or something to pull it up. And this is where it's now connecting with the glue. And so using only one little dot of glue on these, I used more than one dot of glue. I did like 3. And so it makes it a little more challenging to get that off and not do it. Be very careful as you pull off the paper, because every single side is a bias edge, okay, all of it. So you want to be careful so that you don't distort your block and pull it out of proportions like that. And then you want to sew them together. So these are all sewn together. They're ready to go. And then really easy to sew in when you're sewing them together. You want to make sure that you can get to the, you know, the points right here. If you can see that, the point right there, you want to go and sew just above the point there. So a lot of times I will take a pin when I'm doing these, and I want the pin to go in right in here like this. So on the back side, because of how we've done this, you can see where you can put your pin in right there, and it comes right out on that point. And then you would put the next pin in on the other side right there, and you can double check on the bonnet and make sure you're lined up. And I leave that pin in there, and then I will take 2 other pins, and I will put one on one side, and I'll put one on the other side. Okay, and at that point, I've pretty much secured. Or I might even put it through these seam allowances there. It's pretty much secured, and I don't need that in there anymore because it's going to hold it in place for when I sew across. The most important point is when you're matching them together, you want to make sure that the seams are in the same place. So pull back, make sure you're matched up with that, pretty much right there. And then I like to put a pin through the seam allowance and into the other seam allowance, just like that. Okay, same thing on the other side, and then you can sew them together. And you just keep pinning that way the whole way until you have the size of quilt, table runner, table topper, whichever one that you want. Okay, so really fun and easy. Let me show you some other fun things that you can also do with this. Okay, I thought, well, what would you do if you had some, you have some strips in your this back up, in your scrap box, and you can't really do anything with them because they're only like, maybe they're 1.5 inches wide or whatever, and you don't want to do anything with them. So it's just a whole bunch of them together, okay? And then you can put them on and use them for these pieces here. The only thing I'd say is if you're using the same exact strip, to get some continuity into your block, try to make them land in the same place on both sides if you're using ones like that. Or you could be really crazy like I was, and I put together lots of strips like this that have lots of color to them, but they're teeny tiny little strips sewn together. Definitely press them all open, okay, so that you have that. And so again with that tiny strip. And that made this block. Isn't that fun? It's just really lots of color, lots of movement. I'm only doing 4 of these, and I'm going to put it into a pillow. And I started out with only that block. And one of those by themselves is pretty amazing. You could totally do a quilt like this and put sashing in between to make each block stand out like that. So I could have done sashing in this one, and that would have helped with all of the seams meeting right here in the dead center. I might take this apart and do sashing, I don't know. But it was really, it was just a lot of fun to do this one. It was really exciting to see where my creativity could take me. And, to do some other ones like this. That would be fun to see more of this, in a quilt and see what it looks like when you've got 4 blocks with all of those strips like that too. So many fun things that you can do with this. It was really a lot of fun. And usually you're having to use templates when you do a block like this. So I'm really glad. This is Lori Holt of Bee in My Bonnet, who came up with these and did them. So it'd make them a lot easier to sew this block together and make it a lot more enjoyable for those of us who maybe don't want to fussy cut templates and then sew them all together, sew those pieces together. I really love that with foundation paper piecing. Hey, thanks again so much. Don't forget to like the video. That helps us out. click the little like button, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can catch all of the videos that we put on and learn all the tips that we have for you. And if you want to make sure that you are notified every time we post one to YouTube, make sure you go in, click on the bell, and change your notification to all. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate all of you and all those who watch our videos. It really does make a difference for us. And we hope that we're helping you in your quilting life. Have a great day.